Hi, Christian. How are you? How's everything in France?
Yeah, things are all, it's pretty much the same as it is everywhere at the moment, rather unusual circumstances. But I'm actually in the Medoc at the moment, and it's as lovely as always, even if we have to stay in our houses from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. But that's the strange nature of life at the moment.
It is, and thankfully we're all in the same boat, as it were. But perfect opportunity for us to do a wine tasting, and obviously, thanks again for putting some time aside. It's great that we're gonna be going through Coates and Seeley's wines. So I think the best way to start this is to give us a bit of history and background on how Coates and Seeley got started, and then we'll jump into a wine tasting.
Okay, so Coates and Seeley is a bit of perhaps an unusual player in the English sparkling world, in that although I'm an Englishman, of course, I'm also a French winemaker, you might say, because I've been running a number of vineyards in both France, Portugal, Hungary, and indeed now in the United States for a number of years. So I've been looking after great vineyards like Quinta Noval in the Douro, making port wine, Pichon Baron in Pauillac, Château Suduiraut and Sauternes. I make Burgundy at Domaine Harrow. I make Tokai in Hungary, and I now make Cabernet Sauvignons at Outpost Wines at the top of Harrow Mountain. So that's my day job, if you like. I look after the vineyards of AXA Millésimes, and I've been working with them for 27 years. So it's a long time. And so I divide my time mostly between Portugal and Bordeaux. And even so, in spite of this rather continental life, I remain an English man. And the idea came to me a number of years ago that it would be rather wonderful to try to make a world-class sparkling wine in England. And if I've learnt anything, well, I hope I've learned a few things, but one of the main things I've learned looking after great vineyards in Burgundy, in the Douro, and in Pauillac, is the importance of place. You can't make a great wine if you don't have a great terroir, a unique individual place that makes the wine individual and unique. And obviously, like a lot of other people, I was aware that in southern England we have various places that have chalky and clay soils that are geologically more or less identical to the soils that exist at the other end of the Paris Basin around Reims and Epernay. And of course, I knew that our climate was different, although that's been changing a little bit. But the idea just seemed to me to be absolutely wonderful, that to try and find a really great site in southern England to plant it out with champagne varietals, in our case Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and to see just how good a sparkling wine we could make. And so I teamed up with an old friend of mine called Nick Coates, and we started Coates and Seeley together. And it's very much a joint venture between us. We had our first vintage in 2009. We have 12 hectares planted out in a very beautiful little valley in North Hampshire, which is chalky and clay soils. Which, by the way, when I first had them analysed, we took samples and had them analysed at a laboratory that I work with here in Bordeaux. I didn't tell them where it was from, and they said to me, Monsieur Seeley, you are thinking of investing in Champagne. This is Champagne soil. And I said, no, it is not. It is Hampshire. And so it was quite fun that they actually confirmed the idea, and that's really a true story. And anyway, we now have 12 hectares planted, and we've actually bought just before lockdown, we bought another 15 hectares, which we're starting to plant out this year. So we're going to more than double our size of vineyard. Yeah. These days, we're making 60 and 70,000 bottles a year. We mostly make non-vintage blends. The two wines we're going to taste first, the Brut Rosé and the Brut Reserve NV, represent the majority of our production. But from time to time, when we've got something really exceptional, we lay down a small volume of wine as a vintage wine, and we're going to taste one of those as our third wine, which will be the 2009 La Perfide Blanc De Blanc. So that's a little bit about the history of the company. We, as far as philosophy is concerned, obviously I'm very used to working with French people on winemaking. I'm surrounded by French people every day here, and we've always worked with French consultants at Coates and Seeley. Today we have we work very closely with Stéphane Darnoncourt and Arnaud Gimonet, who works with him. Arnaud Gimonet from the Gimonet Champagne family, who works as a consultant with Stéphane, and they come regularly and give us huge support. And it's wonderful to be able to consult with people with that level of expertise and bounce ideas off them and paste together with people with that kind of experience. And we have, as our team, we have in the vineyards, we have a wonderful Portuguese man called Paulo Veloso, who came over from the Douro, where I've worked for 27 years. He came over to look after our vineyards at Coates and Seeley, right at the beginning, actually, and he's been with us ever since. And he and his family now live permanently in England, and he looks after our vineyard for us. And we have a great winemaker from Hungary called András Lawrence, who looks after our winemaking and looks after the wines. And of course, all the team, we work closely together with our consultants, and obviously Mr. Coates and Mr. Seeley are very much part of the vineyard management and the winemaking process as well.
That's a very good blend, shall we say, of people all coming together to make your wines. You've got a lot of different expertise, which I'm sure add to the overall product. Was that always your intention?
Yes, it's very much the way I work elsewhere. I think, as I said before, I think one of the most important things, the vital thing, is to have a great vineyard site. If your site's not good in the first place, you can expend an enormous amount of energy, love, and attention trying to make it work. If you don't have a great site, there's always a limit to what you can do. But we know that we have a great site now. We've shown it in the wines, but that's just the start. It's all about the people. It's all about the expertise of the people and the devotion of the people who work on the project. And it's about sharing an idea. And I think for me, it's the same whether I'm working in Pauillac or in Burgundy or in Hampshire. You have to surround yourself by a team of people who share an idea, who share a vision, which is a sort of dream, which is every year the dream is to try and make the greatest wine that your vineyard is capable of making in the conditions that nature gives you in that year. And if you all share that idea, then the whole thing becomes much easier because, I'm not really keen on dictatorships. I think it's much more fun when everybody knows exactly what they want and we all want the same thing and everybody works together in harmony towards producing it. And so Coates and Seeley is very much that kind of story. It's a group of people working together, all pursuing this goal of every year trying to make the greatest English sparkling we can on this wonderful vineyard that we have.
It's a very good point you've mentioned. It is about a coming together of people, of play, terroir, everything, and that comes out in the wine. And I can pick up, and I'm hearing how enthused you are, and I'm sure the whole team are as well. I think that's the perfect place to start the tasting. Which one would you like to start with?
Well, I'd like to start with our Brut Rosé, and this is a wine. Well, it's no good saying this is a wine I love because I love more. But I do think that rosés is something that England can do extremely well. I think that you would tend to have wines with a slightly higher acidity in England than you get in Champagne, although you can always work on that by working with lower yields than they do in Champagne, which we certainly do at Côtes and Scilly, to get the grapes as ripe as possible. I think with a rosé, you have a certain slightly tannic structure, very, very slightly tannic structure, which actually helps to balance out that acidity. And I think you also have some really English floral aromas that are typical. And I think that, of course, if you put this wine in a lineup with some great rosé champagnes, I'm sure it'd do very well. But I do think that we have in this wine something that is specifically English as well, and it's very much part of our aim at Côtes and Scilly to make sparkling wines that can stand up against the very best sparkling wines in the world, but also to make wines that are faithful to the place they come from. The place they come from is a little vineyard in Hampshire, but it's England as well. And so we want to make something great, of course, but we want to make something that is recognizably English, but just, recognizably English for certain nuances of aromas and taste. And I think this rosé has that.
I think what jumped out to me immediately was the freshness. So sometimes with rosés, they can be a bit too, almost a bit too clean and a bit too underripe fruit. This is very much the opposite. So you've got a very full bouquet of raspberries and strawberries, but if they're slightly when they're slightly warm, so there's a bit more depth going on there. I was actually very surprised because, as I was saying, normally with some of the aromas that have come off, it can be a bit too fresh and crisp. I like the fact that there's more going on here. It's more rounded, which is unusual for English wine.
We work with deliberately with quite low yields, and we do our very best every year, waiting as long as we possibly can to get the grapes as ripe as they possibly can be. Obviously, within limits, we can get them riper than they should be to make this style of wine. But I think that you can get the grapes ripe enough to have a certain fatness and depth to them. Of course, retain all the freshness and acidity that you need to make it a sparkling wine. I think this wine has that. It's also, this is interesting because this is 80% Pinot Noir and 20% Pinot Meunier. And our non-vintage wines are usually mostly from one single year, with a bit of base wine from previous years. And this one actually is from the majority of this is from the 2014 harvest, with a bit of 2013 base wine as well. And so it's actually had 36 months sur latte. And then quite a bit of time now since cork, and so you've got something that's really had a bit of time in the bottle, and I think it gives it a bit of gravitas as well as the all the freshness and wonderful floral aromas you're looking for. But I think you need a bit of complexity as well, and that's what we're aiming for.
Absolutely, and that extra bit of aging that you've spoken about, even though it's not a very extensive period of time, it will add depth and dimension to the wine. Just as saying is important, because we can't be too much along the citrus elements, and it's all about balance. And you definitely pick up on that, especially within the mouthfeel. It's got a very good texture to it, which I believe comes down to that.
Always very happy to hear anyone talk about balance. Balance and harmony are two of the things that they're sort of watchwords for me wherever I'm working. I think that whatever style of wine you're making and wherever you're trying to make it, I do think harmony and balance are very important. And talking of balance, there's also obviously with these wines the question of dosage, and This wine, by the way, this did malolactic fermentation, which also helps give it a little bit of, in France they call it gras, which somehow sounds a little bit better than fat, but it has a bit of that sort of fatness and depth to it, and so when we came to doing the tastings to decide the dosage, We do this with obviously with the whole team and with our with Arnaud Gémionet and Stéphane Derenoncourt. And we do it obviously we taste samples with various levels of dosage, ranging from 0 to sort of 9 or 10 actually, and this one came out just perfectly balanced and harmonious at 5 grams, which is really quite a low dosage, but it just worked, and I think it still works, and gave something harmonious. And so our approach with dosage is we're not particularly religious about either high dosage or low dosage. Our idea is that whichever blend we're putting in a bottle, we will taste it at various levels of dosage and choose the dosage that works the best and makes the most harmonious wine. So 5 grams for this one.
It's a very important part that the dosage does play within wine, because it's that final balance, that final added extraness, should we say, to the wine. So it's no wonder people put so much effort into it, and there's a lot of trials with it, which is obviously what you're talking about, and it's all about balance, and it's about fine tuning it, and that's a very key part to it. So I'm not surprised you put so much effort into it. I think the main thing I'm getting is a lot of the freshness, and it's a wonderful thing to have, but the added complexity is very important. Again, going on what we were discussing, you need the extra elements, particularly within rosé, because you don't want it too sweet or to have the appearance of sugar, because obviously it's not added. But it's it's the mouthfeel. That's the main thing I'm picking up on. Really, really nice, smooth, textured mouthfeel, which is great in a nutshell.
I'm always tempted to have some more, but I suppose we ought to go and talk about another one. So we make non-vintage rosé, but we also make from time to time a La Perfide vintage rosé. And perhaps before I go on, the brut, I should talk about our sort of vintage policy. We definitely believe in the importance of aging wines for as long as we can, both sur latte and also giving the wine a good year or two or even more after disgorgement. And that we believe in that with our non-vintage wines. But when we lay down a wine for a vintage, we tend to give it at least 5 years sur latte before we disgorge. We've done a couple of vintage rosés as well, which I think are absolutely fascinating wines. We have a La Perfide from 2009, which we haven't got here today, but it's people tend to think of rosés as being they should be floral and fresh and not too complicated. I think a rosé can actually be an extremely complex wine, particularly in sparkling. And the vintage ones we've laid down show that a rosé that's given time sur latte can really develop some great complexity.
And it will also help. Imagine with a bit of the aging as well. If it does have that extra dimension and the complexity, you won't have to drink it quite so soon, which again is another nice element to a wine. If it does have we're not talking about extreme lengths of longevity, but it is nice if there's that extra bit of aging potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, I think to sum up, very nice, rounded, a lot of depth for a rosé. Beautiful zing to it, but the main thing was mouthfeel, beautiful texture, really, really nice. And as always, great to do food pairings.
Here you are, Côte Saint-Céline, Brut Rosé non-vintage.
Excellent. Right, where would you like to go next?
I think that the next step would be to go to our Brut Reserve non-vintage. Which is the makeup of this wine varies from time to time, but this particular blend is it's actually 50% it's actually 60% Blanc de Noir, of which half is 50% is from Pinot Noir, 10% is from Pinot Meunier, and 40% is from Chardonnay. Now this one is actually from mostly from the 2016 vintage, which was very good for us. And then there are reserve wines from 14, 15, and 13 in this wine. Right from the beginning at Coats and Seeley, we started setting aside wines to make reserve wines. And this is a very important part of our approach to things. Even at the beginning, when we were not making very much wine and we were desperate to get some stuff in bottle and sell some wine as quickly as possible to keep the wolf from the door, we actually every year we lay down between 25% and a third of what we produce as base wines for future years. And in the beginning, that's quite a tough thing to do. As time goes by, you're extremely glad that you've done it, because. And it's, of course, a Champagne model. The Champenois do this as well. And I actually look forward to future years of how this is a wine from 16 with, as I said, 15, 14, and 13 base wines in it. But I hope that in 10, 15 years' time, Coats and Seeley non-vintage wines may have small amounts of much older base wines, which we may keep in at Bollinger. They keep sort of double magnums of those base wines just to keep them fresh in bottle. And I think that's a very good way to do it. What it means is that you've got all in this wine. You have all the freshness and exuberance and vigor of a wine that's relatively young. It's 2016, but with you've got a few extra keys in your piano when you've got these small amounts of these older wines to blend in, which can just add a little depth and complexity to the wine. Every wine that's in here, by the way, has undergone malolactic fermentation as well.
Okay, let's go.
So, as always at Coats and Seeley, we're looking for what the French call fine bulles, fine bubbles. I think that we don't want it to be explosively bubbly, and so that the bubbles should be a part of the whole experience, but shouldn't actually dominate the experience, so that you can't focus on the quality of the wine as well. So we have fine bulle, as they say. You have again a pretty low level of dosage. When we made this wine, when we were ready to disgorge, we tasted again, as I said before, with the rosé, levels going from 0 to 10 grams of sugar, and the final dosage that we hit on was 4 grams, which is again quite a low dosage. It's low for anywhere in Champagne. It's quite low for England, and yet it just came out as being the dosage that worked. And it for me, it comes back to the thing the subject that you raised, the idea of harmony and balance. It's what we're looking for, and this wine just seemed to work with that relatively low level of dosage.
I completely agree with you. It was the first thing that hit me, and I was actually quite surprised, was the balance. It just felt on point. Not one bit was out of kink with itself. So I'm really pleased that you not only touched that, but have mentioned it with so much enthusiasm, because it is key, and wine is balance. People forget that. Even some very simple wines that are bottled within 6 months post harvest, and you still need the balance. And when you are making sparkling wines, there's all these extra added bits of dimension that the winemaker can put in, so it becomes harder and harder. So again, I always find it very encouraging and pleasing when I know how much effort people are putting into it, because the average consumer won't know, but then when you drink it, you will, because the balance is there. So it's I'm really pleased, as you can see.
Well, I think that balance or harmony, it's exactly the thing that makes it fun to if you're standing around at a wedding or something, sometimes you might be served something with bubbles in it that might come from anywhere, I don't know, and you might feel after about a glass that's enough of that, and I think that would probably be lacking balance and harmony, and when you've got a wine that's like this, I mean, I could drink this all afternoon, and in fact, after the interview is over, I probably shall. But it's that's what it's about. It's about the wine shouldn't make you feel tired of it. It should actually just you should just be enjoying it and feel another glass of that might be rather good. Of course, I'm not wishing to encourage excess or anything, just enthusiasm. That's all.
No, a good appreciation. I mean, I completely agree. Wine is, for me, has always been about, I want another glass. It is about, I want to go back and experience that again. I want to understand what's going on within my mouth. And it is, it's a wonderful, pleasurable experience drinking wine. But in order for a consumer or for anybody to get that, you have to have quality wine. And that's what we're discussing about. How much is going into the actual process of making it, the methods and so forth. And particularly with English sparkling wine, it's great that we are now at that level where we have the depth, we have the complexity. So yeah, I completely agree. It's about enjoying wines for what it is. And you need a lot for that.
Well, complexity, I think, is another key word. We talk about harmony and balance, but complexity. For example, with this wine, which has obviously, if it were just from the year of 2016, it probably would have that as well. But the fact that it has the added depth that comes from having really quite small amounts sometimes of base wines from previous years blended in, that you can add depth and complexity to the wine in that blending process, which is I've always found blending a fascinating process, and that's part of what makes the wine fun to come back to, because there are some very nice wines that are quite simple to drink. You drink a glass, but you don't really want to try another one because you've had the experience. You know what? You're not going to get anything else if you go back. Whereas this is a wine if you have another glass in a little while, you'll come back to it and find something different. Something else will develop and emerge. And I think that's really part of it's part of the fun and part of the total experience. And so that's why I think that complexity is another part. And blending, it's interesting how many things are similar between the world of high quality sparkling wines and the world of making port wines. I've been making port wine at Quinta de Noval for 27 years now. And of course we make vintage ports, but we also make blended port wines, sort of things like 10-year-old, 20-year-old tawny ports. And I spent a lot of my time blending ancient tawny ports together, and I still do. And for me, it's one of the most fascinating aspects of winemaking is actually blending. And you can imagine with a 10-year-old or a 20-year-old tawny port, you have many different wines that have to go into making the final blend, and you're looking to bring in all the complexity from all the individual lots, but to make it blend together in a harmonious whole. And that experience is actually extremely valuable when tasting for blending with a high quality sparkling wine like this one, because it's exactly the same principle. You've got some elements that you have to blend together, and if it goes well, the result is something that is both complex and harmonious, which I hope our brute envy is. So what I think I've said everything about it. Yes, it's a little bit more Blanc de Noir than Blanc de Blanc, but it isn't always like that. Sometimes it tips over the other way. But I've been really enthused by what you can do with both Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier in England. When I first started this project with my partner Nick, I remember flying over from Bordeaux to England, and I was sitting next to the plane, sitting next on the plane to the great white winemaker Denis Dubourdieu, who alas has passed away now. And I told him about the project, and he said, "Oh, well, this is a great idea." And then he said, "I tell you something." He said, "You will find that the Pinot Noir will be much more resistant to the difficult conditions of England than the Chardonnay." And so I thought, oh well, I take it on board, and I have to say that it has been our experience. Chardonnay, when it comes right, is magnificent and does wonderful things, of course, with chalk and all that. But the Blanc de Noirs that you can make in England, I think are absolutely wonderful, and Pinot Noir, which I'd always thought of from my Burgundy experience as quite a delicate grape, and indeed it is, can actually resist the often tricky conditions we have in England, sometimes better than Chardonnay. So we have a lot of Blanc de Noir in our white wines at Côtes and Sealy.
Excellent. Well, I think we should move on to your next wine.
Okay. Well, now this one, having talked about, I ought to just show the bottle, of course. So this is what the Côtes and Sealy Brut Reserve looks like, and we now move on to a Blanc de Blanc. So it's 100% Chardonnay, Côtes and Sealy La Perfide from 2009. Now this was a stroke of luck because this was the first wine that we made. Of course, we made lots of other wines in 2009, but there was a very small amount of Chardonnay from some vines that had a bit of age that was just outstanding. And this wine we decided to put aside and bottle it separately as a future vintage wine. So we made a very small amount of this, but what we were impressed with this wine right from the beginning was the purity and the minerality of the Chardonnay. I think there is a sort of Chardonnay and chalky soils. You know, they have a rather special relationship, and there are some of the greatest wines of the world are the great champagnes, the Blanc de Blanc on the very chalky soils, and we have that kind of soil in Hampshire. You know, and this is a result. So this. For the very first wine we made, we really got lucky in this very, very small amount of wine. This did not actually undergo malolactic, but it had a very long time aging. It had about 5.5 years sur latte, and then was bottled. So it's now had a bit of time on cork as well. It's a pure vintage 2009. So everything we said before about blending doesn't apply to this one. There's no blending at all. This is just a wine that is completely faithful to the place it comes from and to the year that made it. It's actually got quite a high dosage, but that, again, on the same principles as before, we're not aiming ever for low dosage or high dosage. We're just aiming for the dosage that works for that wine. And when we did, it was actually in 2015, I think, that we did the dégorgement for this wine. We tasted at many levels, again, from 0 to 10, and actually at 9, it came out best. So this is actually 9 grams.
My immediate impression of the wine, particularly from the straight away from the aromas, was the complexity. How much is going on here? I was actually quite surprised because I was pausing just to take it in, and that immediately followed through onto the palate. It's not a very, very old wine, but we've still got, 11 years in the bottle? So, or perhaps just not quite 11 years in the bottles, but it's 11-year-old wine. And sometimes if you have a wine that has a fair bit of aging under cork to it, it needs, you can just take the cork out, let a little bit of that first air escape, and then for it to settle because it's had so long in the bottle, and it can come more alive. I didn't get that impression with this. I was expecting to need a bit more time. There was a lot there straight away, which is great. It hasn't, lost any of the zing. It hasn't lost the vibrancy. Again, a really nice mouthfeel. I've really enjoyed that about your wine so far. But I think this is going to open up. This will keep going. That's what I'm getting. It's a very, very interesting texture. So I'm just going to have another bit, see what's going on.
I think I might have. I have to tell you that we're down to. We're certainly in. If we're in double digits of bottles of the La Perfide 2009 that's left, I think that's about it. We're almost out of this wine now, but. For us, it's a very important wine because it was our first Greek one, and it's won quite a lot of trophies and all that sort of thing. But that's not so important. What's really important is that it really shows what you can do with Chardonnay on a great chalky site in England, and. As you say, it has this wonderful rich mouthfeel, but for me, very pure, linear, and mineral as well. And I think it will go on and age for a long time. We disgorged it all in 2015, and I think that. Another time we have a wine like this, and we've got one or two other La Perfides waiting in the wings for the future. What we might do is disgorge some of it at a certain date, and then keep more back for a further 5 years or so, and do another disgorgement to see what happens. Because this is a sort of a thing that we're just discovering at the moment. But there is definitely long life potential in these wines, and when you have a wine that can age for really quite a decent length of time and still be so fresh and vibrant, it means that there is potential for greatness in this soil that we have in England, and so this wine for me is very important for all those reasons.
And just to confirm, so was this the first vintage? Is that right?
Our first vintage, yes.
What a great way to start! Wow.
La Perfide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got lucky. Just a quick word about La Perfide, though. As you may have gathered, we are. I'm frankly a bit French, even though I probably look quite English, and I am, of course. But I have 4 French sons, so and a French wife. So I'm committed, you might say, and I love them all. So I'm very, very keen on France and the French. And we work very closely together with our French consultants on making Côtes and Célie, and our approach has always been one of I absolutely adore champagne, and that's probably one of the reasons I got into doing Côtes and Célie, and so does Côtes, my partner. And I love great champagne, and I've always approached this in the spirit of homage to the greatness of the great champagnes. I've never we're not wanting to upset anybody or anything like that, but. Having said all that, if you spend a lot of time in France with French people, you can't help noticing that there is an historic, how should we say, friction between the British and the French, which is part of the fun of our relationship. And for some mysterious reason, the French have got the idea that the Brits are somehow untrustworthy. I really don't know where they get this idea from. And so they call England really Albion la Perfide, or La Perfide Albion. That means England, the people you can't trust. And so when Nick and I were thinking of what label to give our absolutely top cuvée, which we obviously trusted would rival some of the very greatest sparkling wines in the world, we couldn't resist the idea of calling it La Perfide. And when Coates and Seeley release a vintage wine, it's called La Perfide, and we've got a few La Perfides in the pipeline. We tend to make them in small volumes, only when it's really great. And actually, we've got a release of a La Perfide coming up this summer, the next one, which will actually be a Blanc de Noir. And I find that a thrilling wine as well. And it's just part of our story, if you like. And just for information, I've opened this La Perfide from time to time in France with French friends. And at the first, I was rather nervous that they might be rather cross that I'd called it La Perfide. And in fact, they got the joke, and there was no problem about it. So,
jolly good. It's always great to have wines that've got a bit of age on them, just to see how they develop, and particularly with English wine and English sparkling wine. 11 years or 10 years is relatively old, but not, some wine's gone for so much longer than that. And we've still got a lot of understanding how English wines will mature. So thank you. I really appreciate you sending this bottle to have, because, what a treat.
Well, thank you. And it's a treat for me now, because I hardly ever get to taste it. So this was a good reason to break out a bottle. But what you're saying about the aging potential, I think this wine shows. Of course, we've got terroir that has got aging potential in the best sites in England. And what I was saying before about how in future probably what we'll do is, of course, after 5 years of sur latte, or maybe longer, we'll do a first disgorgement of a great vintage La Perfide. But I know we're going to keep a little bit back and just see what happens if it ages sur latte another few years. Maybe how would this wine have been if it had 10 years sur latte? I'm sure it would have been absolutely marvelous, but it would be different. And this is part of what we're discovering now. And the slightly frustrating thing about working with these sort of wines is that you're working in terms of many decades and thinking in terms of decades. And, we're learning as fast as we can. And we will continue to lay down wines and age them for a long time and try and discover the full quality potential of English wines. Coates and Seeley is a family business, and the Coates family and the Seeley family, and also a friend and partner of ours called Nick Bloy, who's also invested in our business. And we're all devoted to the idea of keeping this in our families for the very long term, and it's rather wonderful to be planting vines now, as we are this year, but laying down wines as well, thinking of the future, thinking of learning. Is 5 years sur latte good? Is 7 years? Is 10 years? Mm-hmm. And these are things that we are discovering about Coates and Seeley wines, but about making quality wines in England in general, which these are discoveries that will be useful for everybody. And of course, other producers in England are doing the same thing at the moment. But collectively, we're all, this is very new. And I find it absolutely thrilling to be part of something that is so new and has yielded such high quality results in such a short space of time. And this is Coates and Seeley is a fairly new venture, but I'm perfectly sure it's going to be here in 100 years' time. And I don't think I will, but the Coates and Seeley will be, and that's a wonderful thing. And so what we're doing at this stage of the development of English sparkling wine is working out how we've already worked out how to make it pretty good, I hope, but all the time we're working out how we can make it better. And by the way, that's actually true even if you're working in a mature place like Bordeaux, even at Pichon Baron, where every year we're trying to make it better than we did last year. But we are actually making probably quicker advances in English sparkling wine because there has been so much to learn, and there still is. So the learning curve is is steep, but the results are already very good. And I think that English sparkling wine in general is already has the right to be considered one of the serious wines of the world, and I think really has the potential to take its place as one of the great wines of the world over time. And anyway, we're devoted to doing all we can to make that happen.
Well, you have to be. I mean, being involved in the wine business, particularly if you're planting and maturing a vineyard and developing wines, that's not a short-term process. So it doesn't surprise me. And these 3 wines are absolutely wonderful. I can't thank you enough for sharing them with me, particularly the older vintage wine. It was what a great tasting. Thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to share the wines.
You're welcome.